I told my fiancee she's useless in an emergency after she abandoned our baby and ran away. My fiancee Jess is always talking about how tough she is. She loves telling people about how she grew up in a rough neighborhood and knows how to handle herself in dangerous situations. But 4 months ago, she showed me who she really is when things got scary. We were walking home one night with our 1-year-old daughter Amy asleep in her stroller. It was like 10 p.m. on this quiet suburban street we've walked down a million times. Super safe area, barely any crime, just a normal Tuesday night. Out of nowhere, we heard these really loud banging sounds coming from around the corner. Bang, 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 one right after another. My first thought was to figure out what was going on, so I jogged forward a few steps to peek around the corner and see what was happening. When I looked, I saw 2 teenage kids smashing the window of this black SUV with a baseball bat. They were laughing and taking turns hitting it. Then they saw me, freaked out, and ran to their car and drove off really fast. I turned around to tell Jess what I saw, but she wasn't there. I looked down the street and saw her like 50 yards back, sprinting away from me as fast as she could. She left the stroller with our baby in it just sitting there on the sidewalk and ran for her life. I called out her name a few times, but she was too far away and too panicked to hear me, so I just stood there with the stroller watching her disappear into the distance. A couple minutes later, I called her phone and she finally picked up, totally out of breath. I told her it was just some dumb teenagers breaking a car window with a bat. She got really quiet and then said she'd come back. When she walked up looking all embarrassed, I couldn't help but laugh. Like, I'm sorry, but it was kind of funny. She got defensive immediately and said she grew up in a rough neighborhood, so she thought those sounds were gunshots. Here's the thing though, she did not grow up in a rough neighborhood. She grew up in the suburbs just like where we live now. I actually did grow up in a bad area with real crime, and I told her those sounds were nothing like gunshots. But honestly, what really bothered me wasn't that she got scared. It was that her first instinct was to save herself and leave our baby behind. Like, what kind of mother does that? She didn't even grab the stroller. She just ran. We didn't really talk about it much after that night. She was embarrassed and I let it go because I didn't want to make her feel worse until last night. We were watching this nature documentary together and there was this scene where a woman got attacked by a bear. The woman just froze up completely and couldn't move. Jess actually scoffed at the TV and said, if that was me, I would have fought back, especially if Amy was with me. I just looked at her for a few seconds. Then I said, yeah, you don't really know what you do though. She got all serious and insisted that she would fight tooth and nail against any threat to our daughter. That's when I said, even a couple of kids with a baseball bat breaking a car window? Let's be real here, you're kind of useless in an emergency. Jess stood up, called me a dickhead, and walked out of the room. She's barely spoken to me since, but I don't feel bad about it. She was sitting there judging some woman in a documentary for freezing up when she literally abandoned our baby and ran away over some broken glass sounds.